Hello, fellow joy lovers, and welcome back to Gimme That Joy. Thank you for joining us this week, and I hope that you had a lovely time experimenting with last week's joy practice. To recap, we explored a bit the idea of renovating our minds last week. And to do this, we talked about letting go of the fear, the limiting beliefs, the worries, the doubts that we may have been carrying that would be less than beneficial in being and doing all that we desire to. And we talked about instead focusing on cultivating beliefs that were more beneficial, more hope-filled, and more positive, upgrading our thought atmosphere and our thought life. And so I hope that, yes, you all had a lovely time with that, as I said before. And on that note, we'll get into today's joy practice. For this week's joy practice from the Sacred Rest Challenge, we'll be focusing on emotional rest. And without further ado, here it is. Write a self-affirmation note that confronts your shame, fears, and doubts. Place this note where you can easily find it the next time you need to be reminded of your value and worth. Feeling courageous? You could even share it as a social media post for the added social rest benefits of self-disclosure. I promise you are not the only one who's experienced those emotions. Well, this week's joy practice is somewhat related to last week's joy practice. However, this time we're approaching it from an emotional standpoint. While we can have thoughts about fear and anxiety and worry, the emotional ground within us can also quake with shame and fear and doubts and worry. And so I haven't, as far as I recall, actually written myself a self-affirmation note per se. What I have done, which when I was recalling, as I was preparing for this episode and thinking about it, I was like, oh, wait a second, I have done this in my own unique way, which is how I do most things. So a couple of years back, I really was going through a very rough patch in life where I just wasn't feeling like I was all that valuable. I was probably going through a significant bout of depression, and I just struggled to find value in who I was at that point in time. And one of the exercises that a coach that I was being coached by around that time recommended was this putting together something that was a collection of the attributes that I knew myself to have in times when I wasn't feeling so worthless. And so what I did was I put together a, how would I say? I put together basically a collage. This is the word. A collage of words in different colors that were words that were either adjectives or nouns that described who I knew myself to be when I was at my best. And so I sat there and I titled it Who I Am in Christ, and based it on Psalm 139:14, which says, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are marvelous, and my soul knows this very well. And so I put that verse on there, and then I wrote down one at a time these words that were descriptors of who I knew myself to be when I was, feeling worthwhile and valuable and amazing. And I ended up coming up with 25 words, quite surprisingly to me, that really resonated with me. And I kept that lovely, colorful collage of words by my bed and looked at it often, took a picture of it, had it on my phone. And it really was a helpful practice for me at that point in time to have that nearby to remind myself that even though right now I wasn't feeling like I was this version of myself, that this version of myself actually existed. And so I don't know, for you, it might be pictures or other ways of describing the who that you know yourself to be, or the who that you envision yourself to be at your best. And having that self-affirmative note or picture nearby, and keeping it handy for those moments when, you feel like I am not any of these things. And I'm going through in this season a bit of that where I'm feeling less than. And I pulled out the photo on my phone of this word collage that I did a while back. And it helped to remind me that, even though you don't feel like it, this is who you really are. And so I hope that you guys enjoy this lovely joy practice as you experimented with it in the ways that work for you this week. For our Life Catalyst segment today, the resource that I'd love to recommend has a bit of a mouthful of a title, but here it goes. It's called The Garden Within, Where the War with Your Emotions Ends and Your Most Powerful Life Begins, by Dr. Anita Phillips. Woohoo! Yay me, I got it. And so this book is written by Dr. Anita Phillips, as I mentioned, and she is a trauma therapist, life coach, minister, so many things. And now an author. I think this is her first book. And it is, wow, it's quite revolutionary. For me, at least. I'm not sure about you all, but this is the first time that I have read a book about emotions that put it quite like this. I think for me, most of the time, I thought that your thoughts basically bred your emotions. And this book kind of flips that and says, for the most part, your emotions are the breeding ground from which your thoughts come. And that was, yes, quite different for me. It's a bit of a paradigm shift for me. And so in the book, she talks about the fact that basically we are a garden, and the soil of our garden basically is that it's our emotions. And so the more able we are to, the more aware we are of our emotions, the more we recognize them, the more we name them, allow them to exist, explore what could be the root cause of that emotion in terms of things that may have transpired in our history, or things that could be going on right now that could be relating to these emotions or fueling them, and then how to give them expression and release them. If we could do that, we would actually be in a much better position to live more of the lives that we wanted to, because for most of us, and I can attest that I did this a lot, I basically tried my best to fight my emotions, to hold them down, to keep them back, and to have my mind basically control everything. And in this book, Dr. Anita basically said, listen, emotions are there as signposts. They're there as signals. They're there for a reason. God gave us emotions for a reason. And so once we allow those emotions to have their place in our lives, and once we do that in a way that's healthy, we can actually live more powerful lives because we're not there in fear of the emotions or they're trying to tame the emotions. We can actually allow them to have the space they were made to have in our lives. And she goes through in the book all of the scientific evidence she has for this approach, and how basically recent research due to increases or improvements in technology have allowed scientists to see more of how the brain works and realize that, wait a second, this emotional piece really has a foundational impact on who we are and how we are in the world, even more so and more instinctively than do our thoughts. And so I just blown away. I'm still trying to process, and hopefully my brief summary of my insights from this book are helpful to you and make sense, because I'm still, it's been a challenging thing to think, okay, so the emotional landscape, this is something that if I tended to it like a garden, well, this could yield some great fruit in terms of my thoughts and my attitudes and actions and just my whole life. And so I've been experimenting with a few of the things that she recommends in the book. And so I thoroughly recommend this resource to you and hope that you find it to be quite helpful on your life journey to having a more joyful and peaceful and restful life. For our life coaching segment today, the resource that I would like to share with you is related to a book by Chip and Dan Heath. The book is called Switch: Making Change When Change is Hard. Another way this title could be put is How to Make Change Easy, because it is phenomenal. The model presented here takes into account three main things. And as you can see in the graphic, that's probably up beside my head, there are three main components to change. One is the rider, and the rider is our rational thinking mind. The second component is the elephant, and the elephant is our emotional atmosphere, emotional landscape. And the third element is the path, which is our environment. And basically, the switch model of change says, listen, if you can get all three of these things working for you, then the change that you desire to make is more likely to happen and to happen successfully. And so in terms of the rider, the key is to direct the rider. As you can see, the rider is fairly small. And so this area of willpower, of intention has its place. However, that place is not as big as, say, the elephant. However, without the rider, we wouldn't be able to progress. And so basically, this is the part where we think about, okay, what kind of change do we want to make? What are the specifics of that change? What are the steps of that change? And how can we successfully approach this change? If there are other people involved with you, how can maybe you brainstorm with these people steps and procedures and ways to make this change something that actually happens and happens well? The second element would be the elephant. And the elephant, as we said, is our emotions. And the key to that is motivating the elephant. And so this basically, the things that kind of motivate the elephant are positive emotions. So how can we generate excitement, positivity, joyful anticipation about what this change can bring? How can we do that to help the elephant be more inclined to move in the direction that we'd like to go? And also, how can we motivate those around us if others are involved with us in this whole process? And also with the elephant, how can we, how can we help ourselves by making the change smaller steps? Sometimes when we look at something big and large and looming, it can feel daunting. But if we can break it down into smaller steps, how can we do that? And then that would help the elephant be more, this would help the change be more palatable to the elephant of our emotions, or to our emotional elephant. And so those are the first two. The last would be the path. I mean, you can have all the good intentions in the world. Your emotional elephant can be ready and raring to go. But if the path is blocked up with all sorts of debris and things to get through, it's unlikely any movement is going to happen. And so with the path, basically, how can I arrange my atmosphere by incorporating practices, routines, habits, and getting others on board with me so that this change will be more likely to occur because my atmosphere, my environment is also supporting it. And so in summary, if we can get all three of these things, the rider of our thoughts, the elephant of our emotions, and the path of our environment, if we can get all these things to come together and work together, it's more likely the change that we desire will happen, will stick, and will be successful. Now for a gentle invitation to joy. Affirm who you are. There's so many amazingly beautiful, wonderful qualities within each of us. And if you can't think of a thing, ask someone or those around you who are on your side, who love and care about you, to give you some ideas of the things that you have, the qualities that you have, the traits that you have that are lovely and beautiful and wonderful. If there's no one around, think about the best times in your life when you have loved being you, even for a moment. Who were you being then? What was life like for you then? How were you feeling? How were you interacting? How were you moving through life then? What words could describe you at that point in time? And get those words down. If nothing in the past resonates, think about the future. Who do you want to be? How do you want to be? And if words don't work for you, pictures, songs, lyrics, whatever it is that you can find that you can put together in a collage of sorts to keep around on your phone or in your atmosphere, in your environment there, to remind you that you are wonderful, you are loved, you are amazing, and you are valuable. May you have a beautifully blessed time of it this week as you delve into this, our latest joy practice. Until next time, bye for now.